Our next presenter is John Landmark, Senior Vice President, Corporate Affairs Australia of Kirkland Lake Gold, who is joining us virtually. John has over 33 years of industry experience, working in countries including Australia, Canada, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Mongolia and Brazil. Like many geologists, John stepped away from technical geology, but unlike many geologists, he entered the human resources space. He has led human resources activities in exploration divisions and recently took on his current role after spending over a year in Canada as the company's Vice President of Human Resources. John is ready to discuss how it all happened over a glass of wine or a beer at a later stage when either he can get over to WA or you can make it to Melbourne. So please put your hands together for John, who may or may not be able to hear it.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Courtney, for the kind introduction. I might just ask if you put your thumb up in the air just to indicate that you can hear me and we've got the slides. Oh, that looks good. Thank you. So let's launch into this. First of all, to start with, I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the place where I come to you from, the Wurundjeri of the Eastern Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their culture and to elders past, present and emerging. In the second week of Tokyo 2020 and the Olympics, we too are striving for gold. And I have something very special to share with you at the end of this presentation. My message is a very simple one. Kirkland Lake Gold has so much more to tell in its story of growth and value creation. And the way I'm going to do it today is to cover it in three sections. Firstly, a broad but brief company overview. Then I'll go into a discussion of the Fosterville exploration program. And then I'll finish off with an update on how our business is positioned for growth in Australia and elsewhere. I'll leave you to read the disclaimers in your own time, but I confess I've already made a forward-looking statement and will elaborate on it many times, telling you that Kirkland Lake's story has so much more to cover. There are some very exciting times ahead for the company, especially in Australia. As a spoiler alert right now, I must also tell you that I will not be divulging or presenting any new exploration results from Fosterville, but I can report that we are very active on that front. For example, right now, as we speak, we have 17 drill rigs on site at Fosterville. The message today is how is Kale progressively and systematically going about its exploration. This gives us high confidence that those exploration results, when announced, will evidence continuing growth and value creation for the Fosterville mine. Also, a final note, any reference I make today to dollars is specifically in US dollars. Looking across the three assets of the company, that's Detour Lake and Macassa Mines in Northern Ontario in Canada, and the Fosterville Gold Mine here in Australia. All three operations have considerable upside in the next year and are on trajectories to growth and expansion. At Detour Lake Mine, around this time next year, we will have published an updated NI 43101. This our current life of mine would have us aiming to produce over 800,000 ounces by 2025 and 900,000 ounces by 2032, with a 5-year target, all-in sustaining cost of $775 per ounce. If we look at the long section, and I'll just show you here, that's currently the current pit, and we're actually looking to the north, so that's west over here, across to east. We're looking at a 5-kilometre strike length there. You can see by the dots where we're focusing our drilling activities. We're spending currently $40 to $45 million on exploration there this year. Right now, we've got 16 surface rigs extending mineralisation to the east and to the west, across the saddle zone and deeper than previously known. So this is a considerable growth expansion project that you're going to hear more about, as I say, in the updated NI next year. But in addition to that, we're also investing in major capital developments. These include the expansion of the process plant and tailing facilities, building an on-site assay laboratory, extending the mechanical workshops and adding in a new covered welding shop. We're constructing an all-season operational airfield so people can fly into site directly. And we're also installing a 5G mobile network coverage all 180 kilometres from the nearest town, which is Cochrane in the south, to the Detour Lake mine site. And this is all to develop a digitally connected operation. If I switch across to the other mine in Northern Ontario, Macassa, the Macassa number 4 shaft is 90% complete in terms of sinking, with less than 200 metres to go to reach the bottom of a 2-kilometre deep hoisting shaft. By the end of 2022, so next year, this 7-metre diameter shaft is expected to be completed ahead of schedule and well under the original $320 million budget. It will enable us to double the hoisting capacity of the operation to more than 4,000 tonnes per day. We see Macassa increasing output to over 400,000 ounces per annum in the next 3 years, and at an all-in sustaining cost of under $600 per ounce. At the same time, our exploration expenditure at Macassa is about the same as what we're spending at Detour. It's in the $45 to $50 million range. We've got 10 underground rigs and another surface rig looking to extend known mineralisation in virtually all directions. And I should just mention that as we dewater the mine and improve the ventilation there, we're actually accessing old areas that have not been drilled out previously. We've been able to get behind the old workings of a well-endowed camp. If I move on to Fosterville, Fosterville continues to perform at exceptional levels. It had a stunning Q2 and it produced 158,000 ounces at an all-in sustaining cost of $353 per ounce. I might just let you think about that and I'll repeat it. $353 per ounce of gold sold. It really has been a great operation for us and continues to be so. We have great and justified belief in the long-term future of the Fosterville gold mine. Besides the huge investment in new exploration, which I'll detail in shortly, we're constructing key infrastructure that will serve the mine for many years to come. We've got a new core shed being constructed, installing ventilation chiller plants, extensions to tailing facilities, and we're isolating and soundproofing many parts of the processing plant and associated infrastructure. So just summarising this section at a high level of the overview of the 3 assets. In the last quarter, we had record production across Kirkland Lake Gold. We produced 379,000 ounces at an all-in sustaining cost of around $780 per ounce sold. We currently have some $858 million of cash, and we sit with no debt at the moment. So a healthy $170 to $190 million is being spent on exploration this year, and a further $250 to $275 million is being spent on growth, capital development, and site improvements. So to repeat, at a company level, the 3 operations at Kirkland Lake Gold, expect to hear a lot more about these in the months and years to come. Turning to Fosterville, and I just want to briefly put on my geology hat again and tell you a bit more about the exploration program we've been conducting there. As I mentioned, we're spending $85 to $90 million directed at discovery and resource definition, and we've got 17 surface and underground drill rigs active there today. And I would contend that at least 80% of our expenditure would be regarded as true in-ground expenditure and investment. We really are heavily directed at getting data, turning it around, and getting to know what's there. Now, what I'm going to do with the next few slides is to take you through 4 years of resource outlines. I'm going to do it in 2-year snapshots, so 2016, 2018, and 2020, and just point out a few things as we go. So first of all, Just to orientate you, this is a long section. We're looking to the west at Fosterville. The blue here, yep, I've got it lazy here. These blue pits are the old surface oxide workings. This here is the Harrier system, and this here is obviously the Lower Phoenix and Lower Phoenix system. What I've also pulled up here is to show you how the outline of the Swan structure. Let me be very clear. This isn't necessarily all Swan mineralisation, but it is certainly what we know to be the structure hosting the Swan ore body. And just to show you that there is what we knew at the end of 2016 in terms of resources and reserves of where Swan was. We also had a little bit of indication there was something down plunge. If we move forward, we go now to 2018. And what you can see is that the Swan has grown considerably. We've managed to outline the very high-grade bonanza-style gold that we know a lot about. But we also identified something called signet, which is sitting in the footwall. And then we've actually got some more mineralisation down plunge, where at that stage we weren't sure if it was in the Swan structure. I should also point out Harrier had grown a little bit. And so we were putting effort in there. And then if I move 2 years further forward again to 2020, this is the last version of the resource reserve outlines we've issued publicly. You can see we've joined up Swan. Signet has expanded to the north here. Harrier has extended. There's a little bit more around Daly's Hill. But also you'll see that there's reference here to Robbins Hill underground, and I'll get to that in a minute. What I want to do, though, before doing that is just to locate you. So this long section that you've been looking at, as I said, is looking to the west. So you're looking in that direction at the Fosterville fault here. This is a plan view here, with a slight offset, essentially on echelon. But there's another system here known as the Edwire's fault, and that comes into play when I expand the map. Because now you're looking at a field of view of 9 kilometres of mineralised zone. We've identified, as I said, the Robbins Hill, drilled that out in the last 2 years. And what you can actually see coming across here as a line is development towards Robbins Hill. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. The graph here also I should draw attention to is the fact that back in 2013, we would have spent about 40,000 we would have drilled about 40 kilometres of drilling, exploration drilling back then. This year we're scheduled to drill over 200 kilometres with those rigs that I mentioned. So you can see the increasing profile in drilling. I guess just to take a pause and draw attention to the logo behind me. I'm sure it's well known by now, but KL, it's interesting, this was actually designed by Tony McCooch's executive assistant. She had an idea that why don't we show a rotating drill bit with gold spinning out of it, and it became our logo. And I think really it captures the DNA of the company. We do believe in near-mine exploration. We believe that drilling is absolutely essential, and it's part of the company's mantra, basically, that drill and discover. So with that, I would also then make another assertion, is that we have high confidence that we will actually continue to discover and expand the resources and reserves at Fosterville and at our other operations. I'll just go back one slide, sorry, for those trying to track me in Kalgoorlie. I know we're using different slide sets. I wanted to just mention where our money is actually going this year. I mentioned the $85 to $90 million, but Robbins Hill, we are looking at the down plunge extension of Robbins Hill. We're drilling it from surface with 4 surface rigs. As we come down with this decline, and this decline itself is a twin decline. It's 5 metre by 5 metre in cross-sectional area. There's 2 of them. We're probably somewhere about there now. We're actually moving our first underground drill rig in there, I think, later this month. But we intend to have 2 or 3 rigs there by the end of the year, drilling out the down plunge extension of Robbins Hill. If we go into the area of Swan, we've put in a hanging wall drill drive here. And we currently have 5 drill rigs drilling out this area here and down dip or down plunge of the Swan mineralised target. We're drilling around Signet, Daly's Hill and Harrier. And in addition to that, it was a couple of years ago now, we actually did a microseismic targeting, and that, supported by regional airborne geophysics and surface geochemistry, has generated a number of targets that we're following up. I think it's very important to state we cannot overlook the generational opportunity that the Swan discovery has presented to create a core competency in the exploration and the mining geology teams. In terms of research and identifying specific discriminatory geological criteria, it's been a great opportunity to develop our own in-house Fostopedia and apply a range of leading and fundamental geoscientific methods. These range from microtextural structural measurements, digital face mapping with kinematic measurements, relogging of many, many kilometres of historic drill core, diamond drill core, taking 3D lithogeochemical transects across the mine property, and microseismic profiling and age dating. All this geoscientific information as IP has helped to basically form an integrated genetic model, which helps contribute to developing a rapid fertility screen for locating bonanza-grade swan-like gold mineralisation. In layman's terms, it helps us get there faster to the high grade. That's probably the explanation of that. Basically, in addition to that, I'd like to say that we use this as a near-miss situation assessment. So we might drill very close to something that is high grade. This helps us determine whether we're proximal to it or not. When you stand back and consider that 8 million ounces of endowment in the Phoenix and Harrier system has been known to date, and you appreciate that the identical rocks are seen at Robbins Hill, 4 kilometres to the north, and elsewhere on the lease, you would understand why I make the strong assertion that we're confident that the Fosterville gold mine will be operating for many years to come. Just to complete a little bit more on the geology, I thought I'd give you a sense of the evolution of the gold system as we understand it. Very simplistically, east-west compression of Ordovician age sediments, so we're talking about sandstone, siltstone, shales, forming these very steep folded geometries. We're talking about this happening around 440 million years ago. Later compression developed bedding parallel shears, so that's the blue shears and slip shears that you get with some early mineralisation, but continued compression then eventually developed these discordant shears and linking faults shown in red. And it's really in those locations where you're likely to find, and where we found, the bonanza orogenic gold in cross-cutting quartz veins, and in particular greater than 800 metres depth. I should mention that the early sulfide mineralisation in the wall rock, that was really first encountered in the first 10 years of the underground mining at Fosterville, and it accounted for the first 1 million ounces of gold production. But this has obviously since evolved to the high-grade bonanza cross-cutting quartz. We still do mine both varieties, obviously, at the mine. Now, the sulfide species, the alteration halos, the structural and chemical fingerprinting, all of that put together helps us vector towards where we might find further high grade. Away from exploration and to the operations itself, we've invested significantly in technology, innovation, and ESG initiatives. We have a 2 to 3 year pathway to creating a fully connected mine. And we see digital transformation enabling all of our operating processes communicate more readily with one another. The installation of the paste plant infrastructure over the last 2 years on surface has allowed us to maximise stoping recoveries, in particular ensuring that we really do extract as much as we possibly can of the very high-grade portions of the mine. Process improvements, major ventilation upgrades, water preservation, energy savings, improved underground conditions. They're all being targeted to optimise the output and the productivity of the mine with industry-leading metrics likely for many years to come. Now, earlier this year, we also launched a $10 million community partnership program. This will be to support a diverse range of projects in the communities, many of them aimed at communities and individuals, people who've been affected particularly by the pandemic, and helping them recover and find basically relief in the Bendigo region. We're operating this program over the next 3 years. Now, this funding expands upon the direct economic benefits from the Fosterville operation. These include $400,000 in sponsorship, $160 million in goods and services, $60 million in wages, and the indirect benefit of employing over 800 employees and contractors, the majority of whom live locally. And not to mention the taxes and the royalties paid out to the federal and state authorities. It would be remiss of me not to include what is going on in the Northern Territory, because this is equally as exciting, as I believe, and very significant. Here we're progressing well in our $60 million rehab program of legacy mining activities at the Cosmos site, south of Darwin. Our main activity is moving some 16 million tonnes of sulphide-rich waste rock from 2 surface dumps. These were mined back in the 1980s, 1990s, and actually putting them into Cosmo Pit. By the end of the year, we expect to have largely filled this pit. If I just show you here, that's the Cosmo Pit in October last year. Most of that is filled with, there's about 40 metres of tailings sitting on there from the Cosmo plant. And now this is taken earlier this week. We've got a fleet of Komatsu 785s filling that, and we expect that to be filled with the oxide material, with the sulphide material probably by the end of this year. And we'll cap that with oxide, so non-acidic material, and then put a wet cap layer, 10 metres of water. So if you look at this image here, this would show you we'll ultimately be left with a bit of a wetland, and the wet season will fill this up, and it'll effectively stay as a lake. In addition, 15 other water repositories around the Cosmo-Howley area will no longer need to have extensive lime dosage, and we won't need to do restricted wet season discharge into the surrounding creeks to raise the pH back to neutral levels. Separately to this, we're working closely with a team at the Sustainable Minerals Institute at the University of Queensland in Brisbane. We're looking at ways to in situ treat sulphide-rich waste dumps. And if this is successful, this research could well be a game changer, and it's certainly a lead example in terms of rehabilitation of numerous waste dumps across northern tropical Australia. So in summary, pulling this together, I hope this presentation has given you some insight into why we believe the full Kirkland Lake story has not yet been told. With much justification, we're of the firm belief that the Fosterville gold mine will continue as our Australian flagship and as an unashamed industry icon, and a key asset for Kirkland Lake and for the gold industry for many years yet. Our portfolio of operations in Australia and Canada is poised to expand in output and quality over the next few years. It's an exciting time to be in the gold industry, and the days of growing resources through fundamental drilling and applying sound geology, mining and processing knowledge to the rocks that we encounter is far from over. In turn, the benefits this provides to regional communities, to businesses, to shareholders and to governments, national, state and local, are considerable. Now, Fosterville Gold Mine is now helping to create a modern-day gold rush in Victoria. We're seeing new exploration investment to central Victoria and a reinvigoration of gold fever. The newfound excitement makes it ever so fitting that Fosterville Gold Mine has the privilege of supplying the gold for this year's 2021 Lexus Melbourne Cup. This November will be the 161st running of the race that stops the nation, And I think, Jim, it's over to you, sir. Please do your bit. Thank you. I can say we're very proud to showcase the Loving Cup with its distinctive 3 handles here today. I can assure you it is the real deal. Kirkland Lake, in partnership with the Victoria Racing Club and the ABC Refinery, had planned to share this iconic trophy at our booth at this year's 30th Diggers and Dealers event. We had planned to be there, and we had planned to actually have the Cup attend several events in the Kalgoorlie community. However, due to obvious circumstances, we were only able to share it virtually this year. So I hope that some of you will be able to make a Melbourne Cup tour event as the trophy makes its way around the country. And I think with that, I've said enough. I'll conclude. Be happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Do we have any questions from the floor? There are no questions from the floor. Yeah, it's a real shame you couldn't make it over, but please put your hands together for John.